How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege. Thank you for joining me today on Friday, April 6th. I have another round of topics around the NFL that I wanted to get into and discuss today, starting with Caleb Williams and having his official top 30 visit with the Chicago Bears back on Wednesday. It all went pretty smoothly, and I want to get into more of the details around that and how it was a little bit different from other official top 30 visits. Later on, we're going to cover the Chiefs' failed vote in Kansas City around renovations to Arrowhead and what that could mean for them potentially moving in the future. It's not out of the question. A lot of questions around that. Then later on, I'm going to talk about Russell Wilson and what his teammates are saying about him now, his new Steelers teammates, as well as covering more around Stephon Diggs and his new restructured contract with the Houston Texans. All of that coming up on today's episode. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. And before I start on the Caleb Williams topic, I want to remind you guys, as I always do, if you have any questions or comments during the live show, please use the tip and donations link on your screen or running across the ticker below with any of those. Using the tip and donations link, gsmcpodcast.net, ensures that I can see your question, read it on air. It pops up in my chat box, and then maybe carry the conversation elsewhere or just have it be more engaging. It's a lot more fun for me that way, and it's a big help for the show as well as all the other shows on the network. Again, the tip and donations link is gsmcpodcast.net. We always appreciate it a lot whenever you guys are able to do that. And saying that, I can go into that first topic around Caleb Williams, the presumed first overall pick in this year's draft. The draft is now less than 3 weeks away. It's 3 weeks away exactly from yesterday. And last time I think I was on here talking about Caleb Williams, it was after his pro day. And since then, nothing's really happened too much with him and visits because he had his first and potentially only visit this past Wednesday. Ian Rappaport, NFL Insider, reported that Williams took his visit, went to Hollis Hall in Chicago, visited with the Bears, and did everything that is entitled in a pro visit. Toured around the facility, talked more with Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles, got to know around the locker room and stuff like that. I'm sure they had other more in-depth talks, but that's all that goes into a pro meeting or a top visit. And in saying that, Ian Rappaport later reported that this is most likely the only visit Caleb Williams will take on this period before the NFL draft. Just like I said before, this just seems too obvious not to happen at this point. We've seen, or I've talked about, Caleb Williams having prior meetings before his pro day only with the Chicago Bears, then afterwards talking to them as well. Met with them before and I'm pretty sure after the NFL Combine, even though he didn't test or do any of the drills. He talked in multiple times with the Chicago Bears already. And if that wasn't already enough reason to think he was going there, during this meeting, Mark Silverman, who covers the Bears on ESPN 1000, on his show, he said, "I will not tell you where it was," which was the dinner he's referring to, "but I will tell you not only did Caleb Williams have a Bears meal, not only was Caleb Williams with front office members, but they had him dine with current members of the Chicago Bears. They had him not sit with the Bears executives, who were there, by the way, but he sat and ate with current players on the current Bears roster." And already stuff has been mentioned around the Bears. If you remember, or if you noticed in the news or just swirling around social media, there were some comments made by Jalen Johnson, I think other Bears teammates, or Bears players rather, in an interview talking about Caleb Williams, mentioning him, how they would bring him into a locker room. And they just mentioned, not bringing all that extra stuff with him that is reported and swirls around Caleb Williams, the Hollywood attitude, all that extra stuff that doesn't really revolve around football that has been attached to Caleb Williams' name. I'm not saying if it's true or not. It could be, it could not be. It could be very far from the truth. But that's always been a stigma or just attached to Caleb Williams' name. It could be off-putting sometimes to some of these other teams that have questions around it. And Jalen Johnson was just really mentioning that bringing all that into a locker room, everyone at the pro level will see right through that. And this is pretty significant based on those comments and how some of the players there got to know Caleb Williams at this dinner. The way Mark Silverman put it, it makes it seem like Caleb was the only one there to have that dinner exclusively with the Bears teammates, some of them. But later, Albert Breer of Bleacher Report tweeted out that the dinner was hosted longer and with more of a group sort of setting, which included Dallas Turner, the edge rusher from Alabama, Caleb Williams, and offensive tackle Tyler Guyton. And he went more into detail, saying that DJ Moore was there, Tyreek Stevenson were there, and those were really some of the main members of the Bears roster that was there. So it wasn't possibly so intimate with Caleb, having him just there with all the Bears teammates. But even if Turner was there and Guyton were there, like Breer says, it still says, I think it shows a lot for the Bears to do this. They've taken him out to 1,000 meals now at this point. But this one had more meaning, more significance to it, just because some Bears players currently have a chance to interact with Caleb Williams. And after those comments by Jalen Johnson, not really negative, but they're just out there. He put him out there. So people already see that and have questions around what he said and how that could maybe cause some friction. Now some Bears players, specifically DJ Moore, who could be catching passes from Caleb Williams, have a chance to really know him and see the kind of person that he is and really just know if he's focused all in on football. I'm sure they talked about that among other things, but that's something I thought that was very interesting and pretty cool that the Bears did, bringing in some players that were already on the team, because this draft pick is already pretty much sealed up. I think it would probably be one of the biggest surprises in draft history if they didn't take Caleb Williams at this point, based on everything that I've said, all the meetings that they have had and the dinners and stuff like that. I actually didn't know this, that it's because it's so obvious now at this point that in the NFL rule book, in the rules that they have, the Bears could actually sign Caleb Williams right now if they wanted to, and if Caleb Williams wanted to, obviously. According to the NFL rules, there's a rule in there that permits the team with the first overall pick to sign its eventual first overall pick to a contract before the draft. Technically, they could do that, but nobody ever really does that or has ever done that, because the NFL wants to push the NFL draft, wants everybody watching it. And even if everybody knows what the first overall pick is going to be, imagine if they signed him already, he's on the Bears already, and then they drafted him. It's going to take away a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention that is usually put on the NFL draft from the second it starts to the second the first round finishes. So it is a technicality that they could do, which I had no idea of before I started researching this topic, but it is pretty cool to see that, but it's definitely not going to happen. And now you look at this situation with the Bears. This visit appeared to be the last formality that needed to happen between the Bears and Caleb Williams. And in one part, it's significant because it's most likely going to be the only meeting that he takes, according to Ian Rappaport, but also because he didn't provide his medicals at all at any point so far in this offseason. Mentioned at the Combine that not everyone is going to get a chance to draft him, so not everybody should get his medical information. It makes sense. Some people didn't like it, some didn't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with it, but usually players provide all that stuff at the Combine. He didn't, and now in this official meeting, he provided that to the Bears. Nothing has been reported wrong with any of that information, so that's really the last checkbox that Caleb Williams had to really just cross off of his list, and same with the Bears. I think they've gotten to know him already pretty much as well as they can from the personal aspect of it. They know what he is as a player. They went to his pro day, and everybody was left impressed with what he showed at his pro day. It all seemed to go flawless, really no problems. And just before, now. If anything, it just solidifies them even more as the first overall pick. And now, if they haven't already, the Bears can start looking forward to how this could all play out. I'm sure on top of DJ Moore, Tyreek Stevenson, there was probably other players there that got a better look at Caleb Williams, getting to know him. That's always good. It's a good starting point, honestly. I haven't seen it personally done with other first-round picks because, quite frankly, I haven't seen one be so obvious as it is this year with Caleb Williams, at least just from monitoring it myself before in years past. Now it's so obvious that I think there's a good head start for the Bears to get going, have some players meet him now, makes the transition a lot easier, takes away the nerves a little bit if there was any with Caleb Williams in meeting some of these players. He got to know his way around the facility. Now all that's really left to do is for Roger Goodell to announce his name on April 25th at the first day of the NFL Draft. So that's in a few weeks now. Very much anticipated, definitely from my standpoint, to see how it all plays out. Caleb is going to be the first pick, and the draft really starts after Caleb gets picked at this point. So a lot to look forward to in the draft. A lot more to come, I'm sure, with other picks and how everybody else moves, making these last 3 weeks agonizing, but also very exciting to see what goes down in the NFL. But in the meantime, we will move on from this segment. There's going to be a lot more to talk about on today's show. I mentioned Russell Wilson and the impressions he's already made on his Steelers teammates. That's coming up. More on Stephon Diggs and the Bills trade with the Texans, restructuring his contract a little bit heading into next season. And right after the break, I'm going to get into the whole situation with the Kansas City Chiefs and that failed vote that they had in Kansas City over the renovations to their stadium, what that could mean for their immediate future and their long-term future as well. So don't go anywhere. More to come on today's episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.